Minister, firstly, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate you on your recent appointment and wish you well in your work and in your term of office at a very important time for our country. I want to confirm that the Labour Party will not oppose this legislation. We support the merits of it and what it is designed to do. But Minister, I noted with interest Minister Donoghue's book review in the Irish Times this weekend on the economics of belonging by Martin Sandbu. And he cited a particularly relevant passage from Sandbu, and I'll read it out. And it said that, and I quote, "Those turning against the Western order are those who feel left behind in it, but not just that. They feel left behind by their own, betrayed by the elites who constructed the system and who are entrusted with making it deliver." Minister Donoghue noted that according to this analysis, the causes of this challenge are primarily economic, and I'll read a quote from him. He said that the promise of economic advancement through a secure job, rising incomes or an affordable home has diminished for far too many. Now, frankly, these phenomena referenced by Minister Donoghue in his book review last weekend, I think should really come as no surprise to anyone who served in the last government, a government supported by your own party, Minister, albeit from the outside. So the challenges that were outlined and are outlined by Sandbu in that publication are very real, and COVID-19 risks further exacerbating the feelings of those left behind economically, particularly our young people who have been disproportionately impacted by the economic fallout from this public health crisis. And as the Taoiseach has outlined in recent weeks, the pandemic has the potential, as he admitted, to cause further divisive inequality, which may ultimately fuel the rise of populism, both far-right and far-left populism, the kind of phenomena that we're seeing develop across Western societies at present. So the forthcoming July stimulus, Minister, has to, therefore, I think, be the start of a new social contract that restores the promise of economic advancement through a secure job, rising incomes and affordable home ownership in a new, sustainable economic model. Short-term working and training schemes, for example, will be pivotal in providing such secure employment opportunities in the coming months and years ahead. And the EU Sure scheme, as first proposed by our collective of sister parties across Europe, the Party of European Socialists, will be a key funding mechanism to make such systems a reality. So I welcome the legislation before us here this evening, albeit 2 months after the scheme was initially announced at EU level. For months now, we in the Labour Party and myself, on the record of this House and in the local and national media, have been calling for a reformed short-term work and training scheme similar to the German model, which proved so successful in supporting businesses and workers throughout the last economic crisis. International evidence from the OECD suggests that the key element of this success was the concurrent access to vocational training, something which the current temporary wage subsidy scheme lacks. But last month's confirmation of the incorporation of apprentices into the wage subsidy scheme is a welcome step in the right direction. However, it doesn't go nearly far enough. For example, under the Dutch equivalent scheme, employers are obliged to support retraining or reskilling opportunities for all employees. Well, similarly, France has introduced a special training subsidy as part of their scheme to help companies undergoing structural changes that need to reskill or upskill their workforce, something the government has to prioritise as part of the upcoming July stimulus package. Specifically, we need to both oblige and support companies to invest in the skills of new and existing employees, for example, via the uptake of online accessible training programmes. This will, as all of the evidence shows, lead to higher productivity, higher wages and greater job security as employers seek to retain the skilled workers in whom they have invested over many years. Minister, Ireland has currently one of the lowest levels and rates of in-work training and upskilling in the EU, estimated at only 5.5%, compared to 17% in the UK, 20% in France, and as high as 33% in Denmark. Take digital skills, for example. Despite our current status as a hub for multinational tech firms and the fact that 9 out of 10 jobs will require a degree of digital expertise in the future, over half of our population lack basic digital skills, and only 79% are actually able to use the internet, one of the lowest levels in the EU. And we know that issues around digital literacy has not just an economic consequence, but a social and cultural impact as well. Likewise, over a third of workers in sectors such as financial services haven't been provided with any training and development in relation to technology, according to the Financial Services Union Working Conditions Survey of 2019. In addition, Ireland currently spends well below our EU peers when it comes to investing in human capital and innovative capacity of our young people. This is the real threat to our future competitiveness when it comes to attracting and sustaining and maintaining high levels of foreign direct investment that we all want to promote and maintain. So as part of the July stimulus, the Government should be aiming at schemes to immediately address this current digital skills shortage caused by years of chronic underinvestment and a lack of in-work training. And we must also seek, I think, to develop new technological universities such as DKIT in my own constituency in collaboration with multinational corporations that locate here, so that the new technological universities that are evolving across the country are delivering and instilling in our young people the kind of skill sets that our economic model and our national industrial strategy will require. Another essential element of a reformed short-term working scheme that I hope can be funded through the enabling legislation that we're discussing here this evening, I think must be to introduce limitations on economic dismissals, redundancies in essence, during the crisis. A ban on layoffs, Minister, was introduced as early as March in countries like Italy and Spain, and later in France, the Netherlands and other EU states. Such measures, I think, are needed to reassure workers in a period of already strong anxiety, while also limiting the opportunistic behaviours of some employers who may use, and indeed have used, the crisis as an excuse to dismiss difficult workers. We've already seen large-scale dismissals, as colleagues know, in the context of Debenhams and National Pen in my own constituency, organisations who, in my view, have ruthlessly used the COVID-19 crisis as cover to cull workers without any meaningful consultation whatsoever. Any reformed short-term working scheme must ensure that both workers and the public purse is protected. For example, under the Dutch scheme that I referred to earlier on, if an employer dismisses a worker on economic grounds, they must pay back 100% of the compensation that they received. In addition, agreement with trade unions and worker representatives has to be reached before any large-scale layoffs of 20 or more employees. I've asked Minister Donoghue on several occasions over the last few weeks if he will consider such a clawback mechanism as part of our own wage subsidy scheme, to which he replied he had no plans to do so. So I'm interested to hear, Minister, for your view on this issue, and if the Department of Finance has revised its thinking on this since the Minister's replies to me, and if this forms part of your government's thinking around the July stimulus package. Likewise, I've repeatedly made the case that social and environmental conditionality should be attached to the wage subsidy scheme, and indeed other initiatives that may be undertaken by government, and that there needs to be as well a comprehensive audit of companies receiving the scheme to ensure that they've met the stated criteria. On the latter point, I'm glad to see that the Minister has been reasonably vocal in recent weeks in relation to a compliance programme around the wage subsidy scheme and its operation. And I'd be interested in hearing an update on this if it is to hand, Minister. Regarding the question of conditionality, we've seen in other EU countries such as Denmark, France and in Scotland too, governments refuse to grant public aid such as wage subsidy schemes to businesses registered in tax havens. Programmes under the SURE scheme will attract considerable funding from the state via the European Union. The states that I referenced a moment ago, they're wisely making use of aid conditionality as an incentive for the enforcement of their own fiscal rules and EU fiscal rules. And so should we, particularly in light of tomorrow's Apple tax ruling and the international crackdown on tax avoidance and aggressive tax planning by some multinational corporations. So I'd ask you, Minister, if your department has any plans to attach any kind of conditionality at all to, for example, a reformed short-time working scheme, or indeed any of the other programmes that will come forward as a result of the passage anticipated passage of this legislation and the funding of other such programmes that I expect to be announced over the next few days. I think that is an important point to make. Many other countries across Europe have attached that kind of conditionality, and it seems that we are not interested, entirely disinterested in doing that. I think it is reasonable that we use these opportunities presented to us now to paint a picture of a better future and attach conditions to massive state investment in the interests of achieving some positive public policy gains. There's a lot of significant opportunities that will arise, I think, from the passage of this legislation for this country, and we need to use these opportunities to paint a picture of a better future and reshape our future to make sure that people are paid reasonable wages, that their rights in the workplace are respected, and that social and environmental objectives that we have and that hopefully we share across this chamber are achieved, and that the Ireland of the future, post-pandemic Ireland, looks better than the Ireland of the recent past.